All right, welcome to the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. We think we have some of our technological issues taken care of. Welcome. Joining me today is Bill Dorman, our service director. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Don't really have too much of a choice, but he's here anyway. I've got a lot of things going on. Unfortunately, it's raining today, so we're not going to see a lot of work actually happening on Main Street. But we'll start with that one because that's the big question everybody wants to know. What can you tell us about the status of Main Street, and what should everybody see as they're driving by over the next couple of weeks?
Sure. So, we appreciate everyone's patience first and foremost in dealing with the project. And we know it's been a long project. It's a complicated project given, we have a major intersection. We're getting utilities through, and in the end, I think everyone will appreciate the results. Right now, we're working on the south side of the road. We're really focusing on the section between essentially Lancaster and the Blacklit Creek. The sidewalk has been poured there. We've done most of the excavation. What you'll see over the next several days, hopefully if the weather gives us a break, will be some contractors out there putting the brick in, which goes between the back of the curb and where the current sidewalk is, which defines where the tree planters are as well. So if people go across the street and look at Memorial Plaza, they'll get an idea on kind of what that'll look like. You can also see where the planters are going to be, and what will go in there will eventually be some trees and some perennials with a fence around it. Some streetscaping as well with benches and trash cans and recycling containers as well. If you move further down, you'll also see between Lancaster and Jackson, the wall in front of the Cotton Funeral Home is there, which is a fairly substantial wall, as everyone's seen. That was a pretty lengthy process there. They're going to be putting up the stone veneers. You'll see they have a section of that done. The contractor has to do a sample that we have to go out and look at and approve. So people are wondering why is all the stone sitting there. So we went out and approved it. There were some minor things that we want to tweak with that, just to get it to look more correct, period based. We're trying to get more of a historical feel with that wall. But once they start going, they will mobilize and they won't leave essentially until that's done. That's probably going to be at least a 3-week process, if not longer, to get all the stone put up on the wall. But we hope that within the next few weeks we're going to be crossing Jackson and moving to the north side of the street, which is a lot easier. There's really not the grade issues. We don't have walls to build. It's really just excavation, sidewalk. It should go a lot quicker, we hope. So.
Yeah. Weather depending, of course.
Everything's weather dependent.
Yeah. So hopefully, probably not going to have a lot done today, but hopefully in the next couple of days we'll get back to it. We're also, this week is the week that some of the neighborhoods in Reynoldsburg may notice some stake signs out there saying our street program is going to start. So I've got a couple of streets, and if you live there, you probably already know. But just in case for everybody else, Virginia Court, Gladius Court, Cuthbert and Canada Court, Crofton Place, Crofton Circle, and Crofton Court are all basically, the work was scheduled to start in all of those locations this week. That's not the entirety of the program, but that's the first thing that's there. So stuff like that is going to be, if there's parts of the curb that need replaced, they'll have that. But then obviously, what do they call it when they take the asphalt off? Because there's a very specific terminology.
So there's mill and overlay. Okay. So basically what happens in some of those streets, the entire curb will get removed and replaced. In other areas, it's just spot where the curb is bad. We mark those areas. So we'll go through and identify those areas, and that's the first thing they'll do is the curb work. Then they'll come in and typically mill the asphalt and put the new asphalt down, followed by whatever striping is required in the signage.
And usually that doesn't take a huge amount of time as far as once the asphalt's down. It's usually relatively fast, especially if you don't have curb work, if it's just kind of just that part of it. But not only are we doing the streets there, Taylor Road Southwest is on the agenda. That's going to be done a little bit later. Hill Ridge is going to be done a little bit later. And then we also have, I think it's 256 from Lancaster to the county line?
Well, that'll be done, I think, next year, but ODOT is currently working on that. That's going to be just a resurfacing similar to what we did. It's called, ODOT does an urban paving program every year. As you may recall, last year they did Main Street through the city. 256, what they did a few years ago is they did up to the Fairfield County line. Okay. So next year will be from that line heading north to essentially Main Street.
Okay. So there's a lot of work going on, and as soon as we have more information, especially about the big roads, specifically Taylor Road Southwest is going to be a big impact. As soon as we have a little bit more details on when that's going to start and what that'll look like, we'll make sure and put it all out here. But in addition to that, we're also doing something else with our sidewalks. So in all of these areas, why don't you tell everybody what that, the responsibility of what the city is and what we're doing with sidewalks?
Yeah, so about, I guess it was last year, we initiated our first, our sidewalk program. I think the city years ago had started one. It kind of just went away, but When we came on board, a lot of the complaints we got for code enforcement were sidewalk problems, whether there was a large tripping hazard or the sidewalk had just deteriorated to nothing. People with strollers, people with ADA issues could not traverse the sidewalks. Mm-hmm. So we want to be a walkable community, and part of that is getting the sidewalks fixed. We try not to go out. If someone complains, we'll go out and obviously look at sidewalks and address it from that manner. We're not actively out looking at these because our goal is to address it every year when we do the street program. So every year when we do the street program, whatever streets we're working on, we also inspect the sidewalks within that corridor as well. We let residents know. We send them letters out saying here are the sidewalks that we feel need to be fixed or replaced. We give them 30 days to fix them. If they do not want to do that, they can either let us know, or if they're silent, we will just go ahead and have our contractor fix them. At the end of that, we'll give them a price to pay the city. They can either pay the city directly, or then it gets assessed to their property tax bill the next year as a special assessment. Last year's program went great. Mm-hmm. We actually had more people ask us to remove additional sidewalks that they wanted to have done because, as people know too, it's also very hard to find contractors right now to do work. So some people, especially if they're looking to sell their home or they're doing anything, a lot of people just say, you know what, can you take out these other panels and fix that as well? It went really well. This year's a lot larger program just because of, like you said, the section along 256, or not 256, but Taylor Road there. There's quite a few panels in that area in front of the commercial areas that need to be replaced. What happens is, like I said, the city is responsible for our panels on our own property, but the property owner is responsible for all their sidewalks in front of their property. Although city's right-of-way extends behind that, it is the property owner's responsibility to maintain those.
And it's really good, just part of a way to keep everything connected. Ultimately, what we want to do is everybody to be able to walk from any part of Reynoldsburg to the opposite part without really having to kind of deal with some of those issues.
And that leads us into the Graham and Palmer Trail, mm-hmm. if you want to talk about that. But it was a good project, a collaborative project with the Franklin County engineers. We've always had this area of disconnect, which takes you to the 5-way intersection from Palmer. So the county agreed to help us out. They're actually fabricating a bridge to go over the creek there, and doing that all self-performing that themselves to no cost to the city, which is great. And then we will build a trail up to that point so people then can walk continuously, along Main, along Graham, all the way up to the 5 corners now without having to go in the street.
Which is good, because when we have our concerts on the lawn like we have this Sunday, that'll just add an extra opportunity for people to actually get access to it. You can have additional parking in that area. It's a very attractive thing for those locations. Now, when everybody always wants to know, when is my road getting done? Why isn't my road already done? Things of that nature. So what do we do as a city to kind of figure out our process? Like, how do we determine that, Crofton and Canada and Cuthbert, how are they chosen this year as opposed to other roads? Like, what's our process?
Yeah, so basically what we do is my street department goes out and evaluates the roads. Our engineer also evaluates the condition of the road. It's called a PCI, Pavement Condition Index. You look at all the different types of distresses. You look at also the more critical thing is waterline projects, other things that we may be doing in the future. The last thing we're going to do is pave a road knowing in 3 years we're doing a waterline replacement there and going to have to rip it out again. So we try and put all these pieces together and come up with the best plan we can. It's never perfect, obviously, and all of it's dictated by budget and what the numbers come in at. There's roads we had on this year that unfortunately we just couldn't get to because when the bids came in, we only had so much money to work with, so we pushed those immediately to next year, and they become priority for next year. We are currently working on a 5-year CIP for streets that we will hopefully be able to get out to residents, so at least they'll know kind of an idea. But once again, it's a little fluid. Mm-hmm. Things change. Each year we're given money through permissive tax funds, through gas tax, and other things that help fund us as well. And obviously, as everyone knows, with things out there right now, that those dollars kind of come and go. Some years they're more and some years they're less. But we look at these streets every year. We look at drainage. We look at, like I said, future construction projects. And once again, there's a lot of roads that need to be repaired in the residential areas, and we've done a lot of work the past couple of years. We hope to do a lot more on the smaller residential areas, but we try and pick an alley, a major thoroughfare, and several collector roads every year in each ward. We don't focus. We make sure we spread it out in every ward in the city as well, and that way we're trying to be as fair to everybody as we can.
Well, you mentioned a couple of things in that. You talked about the water line projects and things like that. So every year, Reynoldsburg is actually required to replace and upgrade different water lines. So a couple of years ago, because of the flooding that was received over in the Briarcliff area, we kind of pivoted and went into that location. But this year we have a couple of other locations that we're going to be looking at. So
This year's water line project is in Brookside Park. It's going to be along Saratoga. I think that line was built in the 50s, maybe.
Yeah.
What we typically look at once again when we do the water line projects is history. The past winter, did we have 6 breaks on that one section of line, or did we have one? Most of the areas when we start seeing a lot of breaks, we know that the line's starting to fail. So once again, that's kind of becomes a priority for us. We have once again an outline for a 5 and 10 year plan on that was required by the EPA. But once again, Saratoga, we actually opened bids this Friday. We're hoping to get some good pricing on that, and hopefully we'll get that done this year. And as far as the sanitary sewer, we're in Marlborough Heights, doing some sanitary lining. If people are familiar with that, it's also required by the EPA. Instead of ripping out the sanitary lines and just putting new lines in, what we do is we hire a contractor to come in and put a liner in. It's basically like a sock. They put it through the line, they heat it up, and it cures, and it's like having a brand new pipe in the ground without having to excavate. It does require us to get in people's rear yards because they have to do it from a manhole, but we have easements through there. Our contractor's done a really good job of notifying residents, restoring areas if they have to. Sometimes they may have to take down a section of fence, but they replace it and put it back up, and it looks better than new.
The city used to spend a lot less on the roads program until issue 11 passed that helped bring in the YMCA. So we've obviously significantly increased. And the rest of it we try and leverage as much as we can, through grants, OPWC, we spread around. Obviously, Main Street is taking some of that OPWC money for grant money. Next year, Wagner Road's going to be the big project all the way across. So there's a lot of things out there. But in addition to just roads and streets, you also work with our water department for water bills too. And so a couple of things are coming up with that that hopefully will be a benefit to the residents. So if you want to go and talk a little bit about those things.
Yeah, so in the water department, what we're currently working on right now is having the ability for residents to actually log into their account, which will take them to a nice looking, once again, we've updated the city's webpage, looks great now. They'll be able to go to the water department page, log into their account. They can actually create payments on there where they can do automatic payments on there without having to call or interact with staff down here. They can actually look at their consumption, which will be great. One thing we're really excited about is eventually having the ability to look at consumption on an hourly, or I should say daily basis. A lot of times what happens is we'll get people that potentially may go out of town and they come back and realize they have a water leak, and by the time they get their bill, it's way more than they expected, obviously. And we try and work with people on that. However, we have to pay Columbus for the consumption, so we try and work with people on that within reason. But this will allow us hopefully to catch those leaks sooner, so we can notify the residents and help them troubleshoot those issues and solve those problems.
So looking forward to it, trying to modernize and make things a little bit more efficient and respond a little better. Any questions so far?
Oh, we do have one.
I figured you'd have at least one question.
It says, any information about the city's composting program?
Yeah, we have talked about that. I think the biggest issue for us is we all know that we switched from Rumpke to local waste this year, and that has been, I think for the most part, it's been very successful. I think we've had a few issues here and there just with certain things, but I think they're very limited in scope. We wanted to make sure that we got a handle on that before we started moving to a composting program. I know there's a couple of programs out there that are looking for, I don't want to call it guinea pigs, but pilot programs where, X amount of houses can volunteer and do something like that. I'm not opposed to it. I know you did something very similar in Bexley.
Yeah, in Bexley we did a really nice program, but once again, it was kind of a pilot program. And the biggest issue with the composting is just having someone that can handle the compost. Where I was previously, the company had some issues, and then they went, I think the city now does it all and brings it to a local prison that actually does all the composting. With composting, the biggest issue you get is contamination. So it really starts with just education, letting people know kind of what can and cannot go in there, and then obviously finding a way to utilize that and where it goes. I think right now we're constantly talking with SWACO. We're talking to the Recycling Partnership right now. Our concentration for the past years has really just been on improving recycling.
Yeah.
We know that organics is a huge issue. If we can divert that from the stream, and they say that about, I think, 60% of your trash is actually organics that can be recycled. In doing so, we can extend the life of the landfill, which is in everyone's best interest because we don't want another landfill in the county. So I think as we move forward, I know the SWACO is doing some proactive things that we can't really discuss, but I know that they're looking into options as well with that, and we hope that in the next, I would say 3 to 5 years, that'll almost be a common thing But once again, it's something it's in the works. It's just on a higher level than us, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That's it for right now.
All right, for right now. Do you have a few minutes to stick around and find out about some other things? Did you know that it was 4th of July this past weekend? It was 4th of July, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night.
I'm still recovering.
It's been a lot of that. So obviously there's a lot of conversations about fireworks in the community. So last year, the Governor DeWine went ahead and the State House approved a new plan, basically, that allows commercial-grade fireworks to go off during specific holidays. And a number of municipalities have all kind of scaled that back a little bit because of any number of reasons to kind of restrict the use of that. Reynoldsburg did pass that through City Council. It will go into effect actually next week because of the way that the council numbers work. It doesn't actually get into effect immediately. So in Reynoldsburg, beginning next year, really you can't shoot off commercial-grade fireworks outside of July 4th from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So everything else that's out there is something that you should not be doing. So just to give you an idea, and I know not all the time is Facebook the best indicator of how many people are either for or against something, but there's obviously been a lot of chatter about Facebook. I think most people are okay with fireworks between 9:30, 10:30-ish, something like that. It's the fireworks that happen after 10:30 that are there. But just to give you an idea, if fireworks are visible and they are bothering you or your family, your dog, if there's a veteran, there's obviously a lot of concerns in there. You are supposed to call RPD. So from July 1st until July 5th, we actually had 17 calls coming into to the police department about that. Of those 17 calls, officers were dispatched, and 11 stops in those locations actually found no evidence of fireworks. So either they stopped or there was nothing going on at the time. They did actually advise 4 residents to stop. One of them was actually in the middle of a street, so they claimed no house, but everybody kind of knew where they were. But they advised them to stop. And then 2 of them, they weren't the fireworks that were visible, but they were in a different location, so they had to go to a different place. And there's really no specific area. We've got Hoover Avenue, Daughtry, French Run, Pryor Place, Slate Ridge, Taylor Mills. So it's a little bit of everywhere all the way across. But they are out there. The reality is police have a lot of things that they're doing. So we actually had a resident call earlier today that had some concerns about it. But at the same time that these things were going on, police actually had, I think, 1 robbery and 2 domestic violence calls. And so the reality is, as much as people are very frustrated with the fireworks, police responding to domestic violence and some of these other issues that the community faces, that takes the priority. So we do ask for your patience. Obviously, if you are concerned and you have these issues in your neighborhoods, please call the non-emergency line. We can get somebody out there, assuming that there are not other more pressing issues. But we do appreciate your patience and with that. And then again, starting basically on the 13th, you're not supposed to have them in the city of Reynoldsburg anyway. And it's not just Reynoldsburg that is doing that. The city of Columbus, Worthington, Westerville, Gahanna, pretty much every municipality has kind of followed suit with that. I think we're actually one of the few that have allowed fireworks even on the 4th of July from that 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. range. So those are some information about the fireworks. It kind of added to the street program is we're going to be doing something on Main Street that's pretty cool. I know I've mentioned it here before. It's actually going to be traffic light synchronization. So the idea is that all of our traffic lights, basically from Wagner to Bryce Road on Main Street, are all going to be traffic synced. So that way it'll allow for cars to either leave Reynoldsburg at a more consistent and favorable rate. It'll also allow them to come back in. And so that's something that's going to be before council at the next meeting. This is going to be provided for funding from the America Recovers Act. From the White House, that has provided a large amount of money to kind of improve all these different things that are going on in the city. But what's really cool about it, and I think we did talk about it with Assistant Chief Brian last week, is the Opticom system that will also be part of this. Opticom will allow for the emergency vehicles to actually kind of basically flip a switch where all of them are going to turn green. So it's a good thing for safety all the way across. So hopefully we'll get that through council, and then that will begin probably a little bit later this fall, like September, October, or somewhere around in there.
Yeah, and then not all of them go green.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is that when they do a run, they have a device in their car, their truck, or whatever it is, ambulance, that basically communicates wirelessly as they approach the signal, and it turns the cross streets red and then gives them green to go through. So that way they're not sitting there waiting to make sure everyone stops. Now they'll still do that, obviously, because some people still won't pay attention to that, but it just allows them to get through at a quicker rate.
Yeah, so, seconds matter in some of these circumstances. Got some good things coming up from RPD. As much as we can't talk too much about the police department's loss at the Guns N' Hoses baseball or softball game this past weekend, it was a great event. Had a good turnout, a lot of stuffed animals for the kids, which is great because sometimes when the police or firefighters are dealing with kids, it's probably not always the best occasions, so it's always good to have something on hand to kind of give the kids a little bit of comfort. You don't have to just donate at events like that. You can do it anytime you want to. But the Truro Township Fire Department came out ahead this last time. However, we're already regrouping and getting ready for our kickball tournament at the Tomato Festival, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we do have a women's defense class. It's going to start September 6th. It'll be the 6th, 7th, 12th, and 14th from 6 to 8:30. Ages 12 and up are encouraged to participate, and I've heard nothing but good things about this class. It's something, unfortunately, that women should have the opportunity to attend, but it's a great opportunity out there to get some great ideas about how to make sure you're protected at all times. We also have the Citizens Police Academy. The next class is going to start on September 1st, and I know those slots are starting to go pretty quick, so make sure you do that. It's 8 weeks, and it'll give you an idea of what it's like to be a police officer. So there's some in-class stuff, but then you get some scenario training about what that's all about. But it gives a really good idea for the police officers to share what their experiences are on a daily basis. But the biggest part of why we're doing this is it allows the residents that either see things on TV at a national level to understand why police officers do what they do, and a lot of times just express their concerns about what they see going on. We know that unfortunately there are incidents in Akron and other places where, things have gone on, and it's a time to have those conversations. And I think the best way to kind of move forward as a society is to sit and actually have those conversations, have those tough questions, and be able to talk to the officers, and the officers can share their views as well. It's been very popular. I enjoyed my time when I went into the class as well, so I encourage you to apply. Try and do about 2 classes a year. So again, the next one's on the 1st. We also have a lot of things going on for the parks. I'm actually really looking forward to this. On the 12th, I'm invited to the town hall at the senior center. So I'll give some time while some of the seniors are having lunch to talk about where the city's going and what's going on. And always my favorite part, always answering questions from our senior residents. That's a lot of fun. So if you're a senior citizen and want to go out to the senior center, again, that's July 12th, starting at 11:30. We will also be presenting at the next council meeting on the July 25th. We're going to be presenting to council our grand vision for Civic Park. It's got a lot of really cool things in there. I'm not going to tell you everything because I want you to either come here to City Council to see it or tune in on our webpage or on Facebook. But there's a lot of things we've taken, a lot of things that the community members have said, and we had that kind of a one design, and then we've altered and kind of added a few things here and there. And so hopefully council is going to be approving of it, and then we'll move to the next step of trying to figure out how to pay for it. So it's a little bit. We also have fall soccer, baseball, and softball registration. But the big need is coaches. So if you're a volunteer and if you want to coach soccer at any level, baseball or softball at any level, reach out to our Parks and Rec department. They'll be able to help you out with that. We also have Seashell Art Night on the 10th, Nature Night Out on the 15th. Again, the Take Apart Lab, where you take apart electronics and try and put them back together. And then everybody's favorite, the Smash Art on the 26th of July. All of those you can find under our Parks and Recs page at our, I think is it Blue Sombrero still? Or is it, yeah, so you get to, or is it something?
Oh,
It's a
rec desk.
Rec desk there. So you can get a chance to do that. We already talked about the sidewalk from Palmer to the 5-way. We're going to have some development news in the next couple of weeks, folks. So we've gotten a couple of cool things in. So you might want to keep your eye out on our building and zoning and building administration meetings, which are the 3rd Thursday of the month, and our planning commission meeting probably starting in August. And then September, we're going to have some fun things that we're going to be able to talk about. So stay tuned to this show for all the up-to-date things on development. And then feel free and take a look at those meetings to kind of see what that's all about. We do have our farmers market tomorrow. We've got Midway Kettle Corn and Lemonade, which is a big popular thing all the way across. We've got Noah Terra Farms. We've got Old Village Meats, and assuming they show up, the Schmitz food truck is scheduled to be here. Sometimes it's you never know what you're going to get with Schmitz. So if they're here, it's great. If they're not here, it's not so great. But hopefully they'll be out here tomorrow night with that. And we are getting ready now that the 4th of July and fireworks are over. We are now shifting here at City Hall to Tomato Festival mode. So starting next week, we're going to have kind of a rundown of all the things that are going on at the Tomato Festival on that first Thursday, August 4th. And then the week after that, we'll hit the 5th, and then finally the Saturday, which is incredibly jam-packed. But we do have a new item coming out this week. The cross-country team for Reynoldsburg actually started a 5K last year. This year, they're going to do a virtual 5K, so it provides a little bit more flexibility. But if you're interested, it's basically to support the Reynoldsburg cross-country team. You can go to runsignup.com. There's an opportunity to get your t-shirt in there, and you can basically do your own route the entire time. So it's a great thing out there. But again, keep an eye out for those calendar of events coming up. We already know the musical acts that are going to be there, so that's really exciting. Now we're going to see exactly what else kind of comes on the rest of the way. We have our Reynoldsburg Wrestling Golf Outing July 9th for the wrestling team. So if you're interested in that, email John Forgy at johnforgy@reyn.org. The best part about this is you get a $10 mulligan. So if you want to take a shot again, it's a $10. So I don't have enough money for what I would need for that. If you were out at the parade, you might have seen our new football coach. Coach Fillmore is going to be actually with us here in July. But they're getting ready to kick off the real work that needs to start for their season. So we've got the big kickoff on August 19th versus Upper Arlington, where Reynoldsburg's going to recognize the first OCC champion as well as their first playoff win from, let's see here, we've got 1993 for OCC championship and then the 2001 playoff season. So we've got that going for us. We mentioned the concerts on the lawn. That's this Saturday. It's Nacho Street Band, so it's going to be a nice brass ensemble, but they help raise money for Children's Hospital, which is going to be for a great cause. So come on out there to the Livingston House this Sunday. We have two cash drops coming up. We've got our cheer boosters this Saturday, so they're going to be in all the usual locations. The Taylor Road in 256, they're going to be Rose Hill in Maine, things like that. So to support our Lady Raider cheerleading team, they were phenomenal at the parade. The staging area that we were there, it's a huge crew. We get to watch them get ready and get geared up for that, so it's going to be really exciting. Unfortunately, that school's starting soon, but we won't say that too loud for people. And then next weekend, you'll have the Lady Raider volleyball team. They'll be here as well to do that for their cash drop next Saturday as well. Now, next week, we have a really interesting show, part of the Citizen Police Academy that I participated in. We actually had a police dispatcher talk to us. And so we're going to have one of Reynoldsburg's own police dispatcher come out here. Her name is Gail Leppert. And she's going to talk to us really about what she said to us at the Citizen Police Academy. She's like, this is what they need to hear when you call 911. There's very specific things that they're looking for. They're going to try and walk you through some of that stuff. But if you ever have to call 911 because there is an emergency, that's a good thing. Now, non-emergency, that would be, the non-emergency line for fireworks, or let's say a baseball goes through your window, things like that. Those are non-emergency lines, but those are things that need to be dealt with. Just throwing that out there for somebody who's watching who, let's just say, has a little extra air conditioning today. But she's going to be out here next Wednesday at 12 o'clock at the 12 o'clock show. So again, William, thank you so much for coming out today. I appreciate it. Great information about our streets program, our water program, all the way across. For everybody else, please make sure you put your shopping carts away. It's not that bad of a thing. Trust me, you can do it. Stay safe, stay respectful, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.